Welcome to Mysterious Destinations of Idaho. My name is Scott and I am your host, and we are the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization. We're also known as SEPIO for short. I'd like to introduce the members of our group to you right now. Here to my right is Nicole, Brett, Lisa, and John. And John is also our co-host tonight.
SEPIO is a paranormal investigating group who is based in the social sciences. Our main focus is to investigate paranormal activity within Southeast Idaho using the methods of social sciences including anthropology, archaeology, sociology, and psychology.
We're really excited to bring you these shows here, and we're going to be going around Idaho and taking you to some of what we find are some of the most mysterious destinations here in Idaho. Tonight, we're very pleased to be bringing you Ender's Hotel from Soda Springs, Idaho. Okay, the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization, we are very lucky to have the help of the Idaho State Journal. Last October in 2009, the paper had a contest, and a lot of people had written in about the Ender's Hotel. The Ender's Hotel is a great location. It's got a ton of history in it. It was built in 1917, and probably one of the most interesting stories is in the 1920s. There was a man with the last name of Pape, and his son had actually gone to Soda Springs for an appendix operation. There obviously was something wrong with Mr. Pape, and he went crazy during the night. He actually tried to commit suicide by slitting his own throat, and then he went out into the halls and was actually trying to harm other guests within the hotel. Now, it just so happened that that night there was actually a deputy, a sheriff's deputy, that was staying in the hotel, and he actually went up and shot the man on the second floor, and Mr. Pape passed away at that time. Now, it was really pretty ironic that the son who had the appendix operation was fine and got through the operation with no problems.
Some of the terminology that we use when we investigate hauntings or different paranormal sites are, number one is we use a term called EVP, which stands for electronic voice phenomenon. What that is many times we use a digital recorder to ask questions to whatever entities or presences are in the investigative site. Many times we do not hear any type of an audible response, but as we review our recordings afterwards, that is where we're able to hear responses to our questions or any type of voices or communication that we catch on those. Also, when we investigate these sites, we use infrared cameras, a DVR system, an electromagnetic field detector to see if there's any fluctuations in the electromagnetic fields in this area. We also use several different thermometers to test the ambient temperature to see if it varies at all in order to scientifically see if there are any types of anomalies within the environment.
So Brett, before we get into our investigation of the Ender's Hotel, could you tell us a little bit about what are the reported activity that they've experienced?
Okay, some of the reports range pretty much all over the building. Starting down in the basement, there's been reports of strange noises and faces being seen. Up in the kitchen, people that work up there claim to have had loaves of bread thrown at them. In that same area, there's a bar that they use in their banquet room, in which people that have worked behind that at night have said that it's felt really creepy and they've had these feelings of dread. And then up on the second floor, which is where the museum's at, people have seen full-bodied apparitions. In one of the rooms, the military room specifically, there's been numerous claims of people being touched different times. So those are some of those reports that we've had.
Okay.
On October 18th, 2009, SEPIO, the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization, did a formal investigation of the Enders Hotel. In this section, we would actually like to have all of our investigators tell a little bit about their experiences in the Enders while we were investigating. I'd like to begin with mine. When we investigated the Enders Hotel, myself, John, and Ryan Denning, who wasn't able to be with us today, we were teamed up and we began investigating in the basement. In the basement, during the investigation, we actually felt very comfortable in the basement. We did not have any type of personal experience in the basement. Later on, as we were reviewing cameras, we did encounter some strange anomalies that happened in the basement. But as we were in the basement, we actually didn't feel anything at all. In fact, we felt very at home and comfortable. The second area that we investigated during the night was the second floor, the museum floor. On that floor, we did have a few personal experiences. The main one being, as we were in the military room, and as you'll see in some of the pictures that we show, there's a hallway and there are rooms across from each other. These rooms do not have, the doors were open on them, and you were able to see from one room to the other across the hall. We were discussing, doing our investigation, trying to get EVPs, discussing what was going on amongst each other, when, as I was looking across the hall, I saw a quick shadow block out the light from the room across the hall. We immediately went over to the other room and looked in there. Of course, there was nobody else in there. We were the only ones on that floor at the time, because as investigators, each of the three groups was investigating a different part of the hotel. We tried to recreate it, and we were able to recreate it by walking in front of the window. There was a discussion that there is a possibility that since the light was coming from a building across the street, that maybe a large truck had passed by. The problem with that is that the distance from the building across the street and the window itself was so great, it was hard for me to believe that a single vehicle, even a very large truck, would be able to block the light as much as it did. After we did that, we did have, we spent time on the second floor. We felt just fine. Did not have any type of a creepy feeling or any type of a sense of a presence around us. Finally, we investigated the restaurant part. We investigated the downstairs, the actual kitchen itself, and the dining room. Once again, we felt very comfortable, did not have many personal experiences. It was only later on when we investigated or we reviewed the recordings, we did come across some EVPs or electronic voice phenomenon on some of our recordings. Especially, it seemed to center around the museum second floor of the Enders Hotel. We did catch several instances where we got faint voices, some of them not so faint even, that seemed to be responding to some of the questions that we're asking. And that's something that we will review later on in this program.
Okay, as we first got there at Enders Hotel, we were just beginning to do our setup as we usually do. And I was walking by this particular cabinet, had a really interesting experience. We actually have footage which we're going to show you right now of me explaining what happened at that particular point. And we'll just go from there. All right, so here we are in Enders Hotel on the second floor. As we first came up here, I was just bringing some equipment up to set up our base. We hadn't even started our investigation yet at all. And I walked by this particular chest cabinet thing here. And as I walked by, this door right here just mysteriously just came open by itself. So let's see.
And we know it wasn't open any more than that.
No, and even as you walk by it, even with it partly open, it's not. As you can see, it's not.
Give it a little push and just see what you have to do to get it to open.
You have to push kind of firm to get it to swing open.
No, it won't.
Nope.
It's really weird.
And, you know, even telling by the hinge, I mean, it's not that loose or anything like that where it would just openly swing. So,
okay.
It's more fun at Ender's Hotel.
So our experiences at Ender's started right when we first got there. As we were walking through the lobby and started up the staircase, we started feeling nauseous and we started feeling dizzy. And as we continued up onto the second floor, we noticed that the feelings got worse as we continued up. We started looking around for possibilities of why we were feeling ill.
We thought maybe it was the uneven floors. But when we sat down, we were still weaving back and forth and we knew that wasn't it. So we continued our investigation and we went down the hallway. We stepped into one room. And it was amazing. It was an immediate relief of all of our symptoms. Like there was an invisible wall, and if we stepped back, we stepped right back into our sickness and all of the symptoms, and stepped forward back into the room, and there was no symptoms at all.
It's interesting to note that as we started doing EVPs a little bit later that evening, all of our symptoms went away, and then they never returned.
Interestingly enough, our cameras were also malfunctioning at this time. Our batteries were drained, our cameras were turning off, and we even had some pictures that were lost after we had taken them, even though we did again find them when we did the review.
There were two rooms that we were very uneasy as we started to enter the rooms. We were standing in the hallway and both of us felt a very uneasy feeling.
But once we entered those rooms, we felt just fine.
We had a really great experience. One of the rooms that we went into was the parlor, and they're actually going to be putting a picture of that up on the screen for you. It was a really fascinating room to go in to visit.
Lisa and I do things a little bit differently than the men do. When we sit down to do an EVP session, we actually converse as if we were speaking to the presence in that room.
And when we went in, we let whoever might be in the room know that we were entering the room, sat down, and then invited them to sit with us. And it was interesting that as we did that, the bench at the piano creaked. And we continued talking and kind of inviting whoever was there to speak with us. And as we were getting ready to leave, we informed them that we were leaving, and the bench creaked again. Later on, when we were reviewing, we found that there was a goodbye on our caught on an EVP, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show.
So Nicole, we got a lot of experiences when we were first setting up in Ender's Hotel. Now, when we were almost completed, the rest of the team members had left to go get drinks and pop for that night's investigation. And it was at that time that me and you had an experience again on the second floor of the Ender's Hotel.
That's correct. We were setting up, and you thought that you heard somebody down in that last room. And so we waited quite a while, and nobody came out.
Yeah, we were taking a camera down to that hallway, and we noticed that one of the lights in the room had been turned on. Now, we had been down that hallway, but a lot of our members are very careful to turn out lights after they leave. And I am very sure that I heard very low but still unmistakably shuffles and talking coming out of that room.
Eventually, because it was so long and nobody had left, we went down to see if there was anybody there, and there wasn't anybody down there. And the whole time there had been no one walking down the hall either. Yeah,
there was no one in the room, and even as we were walking down the hall, I thought I still heard noises. In fact, we have a clip that can show our viewers exactly what we experienced that night. On the night that we did the Ender's investigation, me and my wife Nicole were setting up the last piece of equipment. Now we were to set it up right here in this corner right here. But when we turned this corner and looked down the hall, there was a light, and the light in the room had been turned on, and we swear that we heard somebody speaking and talking during that time. I thought it might be some guests from the third floor that had come down to look at the museum. And even to this point, I still thought I could hear little shuffles or just noises that would have made me believe that someone was in these rooms. And it was this light that had been turned on. Now, when we arrived earlier in the day, we know there were no lights on in any of these rooms. But again, that was one of our first experiences. We had some great personal experiences at the Ender Hotel, but we also caught some evidence on our equipment, such as our digital recorders and also cameras.
Exactly. On our digital recorders, we actually caught several what we call EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. Due to time constraints, we're only going to play some of our best ones that we caught. First one that I'd like to play is EVP that we caught on the second floor in the military room. Ryan Denning and myself were investigating. We were asking certain questions to either the man who went crazy or the alleged prostitute that stayed in that room, and this is what we caught.
Did you die in here? Is this the right room? Or do you just hang out here?
Okay, and as we heard from that clip, we were asking the question, and then we hear a slight no. The thing that was interesting about that clip was that the voice definitely, at least to me, had a definitely either child or female sound to it. Now the second EVP clip that we're going to play is an EVP that we caught in the basement. Ryan Denning was actually taking some pictures, and we were asking questions again, and a strange voice comes up. We couldn't really make out what it said, but we'll play it now.
Video of that.
So, John, what do you think that says?
We definitely could hear the first word is going. The second two words or syllables were really hard to make out, but we tend to believe that it was saying going or get out or something about death even. We're not 100% sure. We're going to have to analyze that clip a little bit more.
Okay, so we actually did catch some things on video. Now, most of these things are sound, but the very first clip, generally we wouldn't be too impressed by this, except that in the basement we had a camera. We had approximately 5 hours of video footage. And in this clip, you're going to see our camera trying to focus on something. So, John, you saw the clip, the camera's starting to focus. Why do you think that's significant?
It's significant because as I reviewed the tapes, I reviewed about 4.5 hours of video there in the basement, and it's definitely an IR camera. It only occurred once, and there's no reason for that camera to go out of focus like that. It was focused on that laundry basket and that doorway, and it went out of focus because the only time it does that is when something is coming at it and it's trying to focus on something else.
Yeah, and we want to remind everyone that it's absolutely pitch black back there. And so unless we have some sort of light or, like John said, a person, there should be no reason for that camera to focus like that. And it wasn't at the beginning. It was, again, far into the tape.
Exactly. It had several hours before and it had several hours after. It only did it once, and we have no explanation for it.
So again, we're not saying that that was paranormal or it was a ghost. It just was something odd that happened, and we happened to catch it on tape. So again, people can make their own conclusions about what that means. Now, our next clip is actually more sound, but we were very excited to catch this. Now, on it, you're going to see we do have some enhanced audio on the clip. But what you want to listen for is the sound of a chair that seems like it's moving across the floor. So we'll show that clip now. John, you've heard the clip. What did you think about it?
The first thing that I noticed when I reviewed the clip was, number one, there were a lot of sounds coming from the upstairs. Again, I reviewed 4.5 hours of these tapes, so I became very familiar with the different sounds that were going on in the basement and the sounds that were coming from above. The sounds that were coming from above had a very hollow echo to them as it went through the floor. This sound definitely was coming from the basement, and I would dare say in the same corridor as that camera was. There is a table and a chair just out of view of that IR view on the camera. We know because when our investigators went down and investigated the basement, many of them sat in the chair and sat at that table. So we know the table and chair was just out of range of that IR, and I felt a little bit sad that we were just out of range of that chair, because I would have loved to have seen the chair move. But I definitely believe that the chair moved when there was nobody in the basement, and there's no reason it would move on its own.
Yeah, and if someone had come down, the camera definitely would have caught a figure in the background moving. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the chair. It's a smaller object, but definitely would have caught somebody if they were in that basement. So finally tonight, we'd like to present our final piece of evidence. And this one was something that happened to me. Again, it happened in the military room. And we really like it because it correlates with other things that we've told you tonight. Okay, and then we actually have a clip that we're going to show you of this experience. Now, it is on audio, but we're going to put some pictures to it as well, so we'll show that clip.
We're also looking for a prostitute that used to work in these buildings. Dude. I'm not joking. It just felt like someone touched me.
Really?
Right across my chest, right here. I've never felt that before. It was like, I'm trying to do it again. I can't. Seriously, it was like something went like that, but it was almost like electricity almost. I mean, it didn't feel like a finger, but you know how you can feel the just little vibrations as something catches your...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, was that you that touched Scott?
Just where the prostitute was. That was weird, dude. I mean, it was soft, but yet it was unmistakable. It was like someone was touching me going this way.
Towards the door.
Towards the door, and it was like just little... I mean, you could just feel little fibers of my shirt being tugged.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
Yeah. Wow, it was weird.
Well, if you're in here with us, we need you to give us a good sign. You can touch Scott again, touch me, tug on us, knock on something. Please.
Would you please touch either me or Brett again, if that was you? We really appreciated it. And if that was the prostitute, we understand that, you know, people had to make a living. We're not judging you.
You did what you could to get by.
that was the first time that something like that had ever happened to me. I've never been touched. We have had other experiences during other investigations, but as you could tell in the audio, I really didn't know how to describe it at the time. I now describe it as static electricity. There wasn't really pressure, but it wasn't like anything I've ever felt before. So, John, in the final analysis, what did you think about Ender's Hotel?
My opinion on Ender's Hotel was that it was a very unique experience. It was different from a lot of the experiences that we've had at other locations. There were a lot of personal experiences plus a lot of evidence to back it up. I definitely would say that Ender's was there's something going on there. The one thing I want to reiterate is at no time did we ever feel uncomfortable, did we feel threatened there. In fact, I felt very, very comfortable there, and it was a very enjoyable experience to investigate.
Yeah, in fact, me and my wife would like to go back there and probably stay some nights at the Ender's Hotel. It's got beautiful rooms, and like you said, I never felt uncomfortable at that location. And it's actually a wonderful hotel, and the people that have restored it did an absolutely incredible job. So it was kind of a funny place to go looking for ghosts.
Exactly. The Ender's Hotel is a beautiful hotel, fully restored. Excellent place to take families or anybody who just wants to get out of town and just go spend a weekend and go to an interesting place. One thing I would like to say is that when we did investigate the Ender's Hotel, we asked permission and we got with the management and said, hey, can we come in and do this? And we arranged it with them. At any time, it's not good practice for anybody just to show up and try to do your own ghost investigation. Please ask permission before you go there and want to snoop around.
Well, we've had a great time bringing you this first program of Mysterious Destinations of Idaho. We hope to bring you more, and we hope to bring you more locations around Southeast Idaho. Again, we would really like any comments or feedback if you've enjoyed this program or you'd like to see a location. But you can please write us by email at info@SEIPO.org. Again, that's info@SEIPO.org. And again, we would love as much feedback as we could get for our show, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. Thank you.